Welcome to our webinar today, hosted by LOCAliQ, how to prepare for Google's AI mode. And hopefully we're going to share with you today everything that your business needs to know in order to be prepared for this change that has come upon us. I think everyone here will be in great hands today. Let me give you a little introduction if this is your first webinar that you're joining from LOCAliQ. Long and short, we help businesses improve their online presence through smart digital marketing strategies. And one of our specialties is SEO. In fact, we're recognized as the SEO Agency of the Year by the UK Agency Awards. And so that means you can rest assured in knowing that you're in good hands if you want to rank higher on search engines, if you want to attract more visitors, and ultimately drive uh, more business in general for your company. I want to launch a survey. So in just a second, you should see it in your team's platform, a poll, just so that I can see like who we have on the call and where you all are in terms of knowledge and understanding about certain topics that we're going to cover today, as well as uh, what elements of digital marketing are a part of your strategy. So I just launched a poll. You should see it. I'll keep it live for about 60 seconds. It's like 3 quick questions. Let us know which of these tactics are part of your digital marketing strategy. That's question one. Question two, I think, is which of those topics do you feel like you need to learn more about? And then the last question, question number three, is what is your biggest challenge in those marketing areas? Whatever it might be. It could be that you may not feel like you know enough. It could be that you may not feel like you have enough budget or resource, whatever it is. Just go ahead and type that word in and then submit your response. Great. I'm starting to see some responses come through. We'll keep it open for about 30 more seconds. So hurry very quickly. We've got some good engagement. Let us know your um, results there. Okay. 10 more seconds. See a few more coming through. All right, good deal. So we've got some good results there. Let's see. Let me close the poll here. All right, and you should see the results there. So for question number one, um, which which of the following are currently part of your digital marketing strategy? We've got a good mix, and paid social is in the lead at 20% that I see. People feel like they need to learn a little bit more about paid search as well as SEO. SEO is at 30% of the responses that have come through. And then the biggest challenge in these marketing areas, the largest word in our word cloud is budget. I can see that. That makes sense. Good deal. So thank you all for responding back and sharing your feedback on that. All right, good deal. Let's carry on here. And if you can see the screen here, this is our agenda for today. We've got a lot that we're going to cover today, and hopefully Shay and I have simplified the content so it's easy to follow as best as possible. But in the nutshell, our content today is going to cover 3 different areas. First, we're going to talk about how Google is evolving with AI. And then we're going to share about 4 tips that every business on the call will be able to use to begin to prepare themselves and respond positively to the changes that Google has put forward. And then we're going to peel the curtain back and talk a little bit about some of the things that Shay and everyone in our SEO team are seeing with some clients across a variety of industries. As it relates to AI mode and just showing up in search that's powered by AI. I'm Brandon Griffin. I'm Interim Marketing Director for LOCAliQ, and I'll be one of the facilitators today. But the star of today's show is the one and only Shai Khullar, who is the head of web presence. And I think Shai, I'm serious. I think you are like the best person that we could have to talk about this topic because you know so much about SEO and just in general the shifts that are coming. But can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself and like how long you've been in this space and working with LOCAliQ?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Shay. Like Brandon said, I'm the head of web presence here at LOCAliQ. I work closely with our SEO, digital PR, and web development teams. I've worked with LOCAliQ for around 3.5 years now, and I've been in the SEO and digital marketing space for probably coming up to 16 years now, so quite a long time. During that time, I've seen a lot of changes, and I've seen a need for businesses, particularly SMEs and agencies like ourselves, to have to adapt their strategies to the latest algorithm updates and industry changes. So I'm hoping I'm well placed to offer some insights to you all today.
Cool, good deal. Thank you, Shay. Again, happy to have you with us today. And for everyone who's joining us live, don't worry, you're going to get the notes and the PowerPoint slides and the recording emailed to you within 24 hours of attending today. So you'll have that. So feel free to just kind of focus in on what we're saying, and then you can go back and watch the replay if you need to. And then throughout the webinar, I'm going to show different resources to you. You'll be able to click through and click on those links once you get the PowerPoint slides and deck as well. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Shay, this is like I mentioned, a very large topic, and I think the best place to start is an angle that has, everyone can agree on and knows a lot about and have heard a lot about. And so I think that is with this particular question. Businesses have heard a lot about Google's changes, AI, ChatGPT over the last what year and a half or so, but especially the last couple of weeks. And it kind of feels hard as to knowing like where we should put our energy, our time, especially when at the end of the day, we're just trying to get people to our website so that we can get customers, through the doors of our business. But I think this is a good angle to start. Like with all this conversation, where should we start? How should we prioritize?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a lot of business owners that we speak to have that exact same question, and rightly so, to be fair. So for us, it's a pretty simple answer as it currently stands, and the answer is still Google. So from our research, our data, what we can see is Google still sends the most traffic to websites across all the platforms. So it's by far and away the highest traffic driver and generator, and that's despite the fact that ChatGPT has obviously grown a lot since its inception. Google still is by far away the runaway sort of winner. So compared to the three most used LLMs, Google is still at the moment currently sending 345 times more traffic to websites. That's a hell of a lot more traffic, of course, and what that means in terms of leads conversions, you can guess what that means. AI-based platforms, so ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini, as you can see there, they're in the bottom half for traffic, and it's expected that they'll never really be the top traffic generators, even in the long run. So for the short to medium term, the focus for us and for small businesses and businesses in general should remain on Google, although that's not to say that we discount LLMs altogether. And of course, that is the trajectory in which the industry is heading. But at the moment, as it stands, Google is still by far and away where people should be investing their marketing budget and spend. So I've got some more information on this as well. I think just in
Okay.
terms of perhaps it goes a little bit at odds of what people have been hearing potentially. So there are projections out there. And I think anyone on LinkedIn has probably seen similar graphs to this as well over the last few months. So projections are out there that ChatGPT in particular could overtake Google by 2030. Again, at LOCAliQ, our firm view is that it's extremely unlikely and improbable that this will happen. And the reason for that is, well, two reasons. So the first one for us is the majority of people using ChatGPT and other LLMs are doing so to help them with very specific tasks. So that could be things like drafting an email or proofreading text or whatever it may be. So those are sort of the sort of queries that wouldn't necessarily eat into Google's pie whatsoever, as users don't usually use Google for those purposes. So there is no crossover there. And I think there's a similarity to some of the talk that we've had maybe in the late 2000s when social media was taking off really. And there was an expectation that that may kill Google and may kill the practice of SEO as well. And the reason for that was there was a bit of a belief that Facebook and Twitter, as it was known back then, the algorithms would become so personalized and tailored to each specific user, and their features would expand and evolve over time to the point where there would be no need for anyone to ever navigate to Google itself. But as we can now look back on in hindsight, social media and search engines can both coexist. They serve different purposes. And although there is a small crossover in certain areas in terms of, TikTok shops, for instance, that may impact e-com searches on Google, for the most part, there are distinct sort of purposes for both of those things. So we expect ChatGPT and LLMs in particular to coexist with Google in the same way. And the second reason why we think that's this is improbable is because Google is doing something about this, right? So it's not a case that they're just sort of sitting on their laurels and hoping that ChatGPT doesn't overtake them. They're being proactive about it. And of course, we'll go through that today as well in terms of some of the things they're doing. And for me, I'm very clear on the fact that Google are pioneers of search, and they have been for decades. They have a huge head start when it comes to the vast data they have on users, behavior, intent, search quality. That's been their bread and butter for years. So, from my perspective, there is a reason why they've fended off other threats in the past, and we don't believe that this will be any different.
That's a good point, Shay. And I like how you also mentioned that the two can coexist at the same time. And as you mentioned, Google is a leader in the space and they're responding. And so their first way of responding to, all of this was AI overviews. Can you just kind of give us a quick overview in terms of like what AI overviews is and how that's impacting business?
Yeah, absolutely. So AI Overviews was launched in the UK in August 2024. And essentially, it's Google generating an answer for you. So if you put in a certain search term, a keyword, a complex query, Google will try and give you that information within the search results page itself. And I think we've all probably seen this now. It's been out for a while, and it can be helpful. It can also be equally misleading at times in terms of the information it pulls in. But ultimately, it's Google's answer to ChatGPT, or the first answer it had to ChatGPT, because that's what people are getting accustomed to. So it predominantly appears as it stands for informational keywords, but it is massively expanding, and it is expanding to commercial, transactional, and local based keywords, which will affect SMEs, of course. The effect of what we've seen is zero-click searches, increased impressions, but fewer clicks and fewer, well, decreasing click-through rates. The problem to some degree, or the issue to some degree for business owners, is Google doesn't offer any separate reporting or accurate reporting on AI Overview's performance. So ultimately, it's all bucketed into Google traffic. So there is a bit of an issue potentially in the industry of a business owners to sort of quantify their efforts. So this has been the biggest change that we've had for decades, and of course, it's not going to stop here as well. So we do have some more coming as well in terms of AI mode, etc., which is what we hear about today.
Good overview. And I just want to pause for a second and encourage everyone, keep the questions coming in the chat. We have a few colleagues in the background who are doing their best to answer as many of those questions live as we can. We also have a Q&A segment at the end of our webinar today, and Shay and I will answer as many as we can live there. But if you submit a question and we aren't able to answer it or get to you today, don't worry, because we will make sure we put out a blog with all of the answers. So we're getting a lot of questions, Shay, in the chat. And so I just want to make sure everyone knows that we'll get them all acknowledged. And so Shay, AI overviews, the first way Google kind of responded to this, and you mentioned how it's impacting business websites. And I think we have an example here to show, because this is an example from a live client that we saw as well. And this is a screenshot from Google Search Console. So we're seeing traffic to this particular website through, searches that come through. And what we see here, there are a couple of points here. Notice this blue line. These are the total clicks to the website that's coming through from Google search Google search pages, right? Search result pages. So it's peaking at this moment, this is like March 2024. On this particular day, this particular client got about 300 clicks through to their website from Google, from organic search. And then notice over here, they got more impressions. So the impressions are touching almost 150,000 impressions for that particular day. And so typically you would get more clicks in terms of ratio than impressions, but later on in the year, it was kind of inverse this trending effect. And you can see where it started to shift and started to kind of invert. And it happened right here in August, which is when AI overview started to take shape. So Shay, is this kind of a good illustration as to like what a lot of business started to see once Google released AI overviews?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's the perfect example. I think in terms of what we're seeing in the industry across the board, really. So every SEO agency, every business website is sort of seeing a very similar trend. And I think what's interesting in terms of this is that despite the clicks decreasing, what we're seeing is that the quality of those clicks has improved over time. So the clicks that clients have lost are primarily for information-led keywords as opposed to anything else. So essentially, it's that's top of the funnel keywords that were probably driving a lot of visibility and page views, but not many conversions and leads. So the users that do click through are in a more buying ready state, despite the fact that the vanity metrics to some degree have decreased. So again, what we're seeing across all our clients, to be fair, is an increase in conversions, which is ultimately what matters for business owners. They want leads, they want inquiries, and they need ROI on their spend. They don't need clicks or impressions. That's a good byproduct to have, but it's not the crucial factor. So it's what we can see on this screenshot here at the very bottom of those two screenshots is that despite the fact that the clicks have decreased over time, they've actually had a 70% and a 90% increase in phone calls and contact form submissions. So the conversion rate has gone up as the users who wouldn't have made an inquiry are no longer landing on their website because they're getting their answers essentially catered to by Google itself. At the same time, the number of users that are ready to convert and have clicked through from AI overviews or from traditional search results have increased. So what this means for business owners or marketing departments that need to maybe report upwards, it's pretty simple. So vanity metrics such as clicks and total number of users will decline. That is just the world we're living in at the moment. But what's more important to track and measure are the key metrics of conversions and leads. That should be the main focus. And a huge decrease in clicks and users isn't the end of the world. So as long as conversions and leads are holding up strong, you likely have a very robust strategy and you will get the ROI that you need. At the same time, however, it is worth mentioning that tracking conversions and leads may also become trickier in the future for two reasons. And this is quite a difficult place to be in, I think, for agencies, but also for business owners as well. So there's an issue in terms of tracking those conversions and leads in the future potentially. And the first one is content mode and content compliance policies as a whole. So Google is pushing on something called Content Mode V2, which is to ensure that users that explicitly give consent are the only ones that are tracked within GA4. So capturing their conversions, their leads, their actions on the website will become harder over time. And the second reason is AI answers, so LLMs, ChatGPT, AI overviews, AI mode, they can all encourage users to make conversions off the website without ever actually needing to land on the website itself. So it's either by showing your contact information or linking to your Google business profile to make an inquiry, get directions, etc. And users don't actually need to ever go onto your website. So the fact that neither of these are trackable means that conversion data could also start to decline over time. But that's not to say that actual conversions have dropped at any stage. It's just that the fact that tracking off them will become harder in time. So it's a bit of a difficult place to be to some degree.
Yeah.
And for business owners, our recommendation would be, at this stage anyway, would be to have a bit of a fallback. And the fallback would be the old school way of tracking to some degree, which is asking your customers where they found you and developing an internal system whereby you can assign each lead to a source based on first-hand information from the customer themselves. You're not relying on tracking technologies, which at the moment or in the future may not be as reliable as you like. So it's a bit of a difficult conundrum to be in to some degree. So we don't expect actual conversions at least to decline. It's just the fact that tracking them may be a bit harder in the future.
Yeah, they are making the job easier for us, and it's probably just going to get a little bit more complicated as you described. And we have in a few slides, four practical tips, action items for people today. But I think everything that you just said is the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that a business and a professional can do to prepare. Really, it's a mindset shift. We have to go from looking at um, those high level number vanity metrics to some point that we may have been used to tracking um, as KPIs, but we have to look a little bit deeper into some other data points to know whether or not it's converting. Because just because our numbers are decreasing in terms of clicks, to your point, the individuals who are coming through to our website have a greater intent and are taking actions, and you may not see that number at that top level metric that's reported on this particular platform. You got to drill down into your website, have those conversations with your sales team, the customers themselves, to see how things are converting, and then that will allow you to shift what numbers and metrics you're focused in on, especially if you've got to report it to your upline. Yeah. Google AI overviews is a pretty broad topic in and of itself. We have a webinar in which we've gone into depth about this particular topic. So when you get this slide, you can click through or go to our website and take a look at this webinar at your leisure, and you can go into that topic a little bit more in depth if you like to. But what we're here to really talk about is Google's AI mode, which is their second iteration and their second response to AI and search. And so, Shay, what's Google AI mode, and what should we know about that?
Yeah, so yeah, this is another big shift from Google, and AI mode essentially launched in the US earlier this year, and it has been launched in the UK as of last month. So what it essentially is a very similar interface to ChatGPT and other LLMs. So users are able to ask very complex queries, but also ask contextual follow-up questions because Google will remember the previous question that you've asked it in a bit of a thread. So essentially, rather than users having to window shop themselves by clicking on different links to find what they're looking for, Google is doing this on their behalf. So you can see on the right over there where a user is inputting a very specific long tail query. So they're looking for things to do in a city with their friends. They specify they like food, they like music, they like chill vibes, and going on adventures. So this is a much more complex search in comparison to simple keyword-based searches, such as things to do in London or whatever location it may be. So what Google's doing here really is combing through its index of websites and trying to find suitable recommendations to match the user's needs. And clearly they've got multiple needs here. And is curating all of that information in one place for the user. So in essence, it becomes an article of its own. The way it's doing this is something called the fan out technique. So it's breaking down the user's query into different subtopics, and it's carrying out multiple searches in the background for you without the user having to do that themselves. So from our perspective, this may become the default search experience on Google in the future. At the moment, users need to navigate onto AI mode on the tab on the top left to get to this search experience. But we do think this might become the default in the future. Or if it doesn't become the default, it might become the preferred experience, or it gets built into traditional search result pages. So there might be curations within the pages themselves without you having to navigate to any specific mode itself. So what this is likely to do is make the impact that AI overviews has had, make that even stronger to some degree. So what we're expecting to see is a further increase in zero-click searches, so users never going to any website really. What that means for business owners is to think about SEO maybe through the lens of a display or brand visibility channel that can help drive conversions, rather than a channel that can draw large numbers of raw traffic to their website, which is predominantly what SEO has done in the past. So it's a big change. It's, again, depending on your view, it's either a better or worse experience. Some people like that ability to manually go through different websites, read the content on the websites themselves. probably very similar to driving an automatic or a manual. Some prefer that element of control, and some prefer that ease and that sort of simplicity, that slickness to it. So it's a very similar sort of situation we're in at the moment, but we might get to a place where Google does shift completely and say, right, there is no legacy search available anymore. It now is just AI mode, and that's all we do.
Yeah. Now, Shay, you mentioned very briefly the fan out method, and that takes us to the first tip for our webinar attendees today, for things that they can do to prepare for Google's AI mode, and that is to optimize your website content using the fan out method. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is for our audience, Shay?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, what Google's doing is doing multiple searches in the background. So we've got an example here to sort of illustrate how that works. So imagine a potential resident's family member search. So if you're searching for, I'm looking for the best care home in Glasgow for my elderly mum, please give me some recommendations. With AI mode, Google isn't just matching those exact keywords to your page. It's not looking for pages that keep repeating those keywords or have variations of it. So it's not looking for best care home in Glasgow and seeing how often your page mentions that. What it does instead is it breaks the query into multiple sub questions behind the scenes. And what it does is it determines what best really means for the user. So what Google needs to really know is the business that I'm going to recommend giving me the confidence that I can recommend them based on the different queries and searches that I'm doing in the background. So to take that keyword as an example, some of the subqueries or the fan out queries that Google might do are, what types of care does that care home provide? What are the costs and fees? What facilities and activities are on offer? What are the qualifications of the staff, maybe the care home itself? What's the visiting policy? What's the safety and hygiene protocols? And do they consider any dietary needs? So this is very different in relation to previous sort of traditional SEO sort of optimization to some degree, where yes, we do answer things within things like frequently asked questions, we answer it within content, but having it all on one page is something that's slightly different. So with traditional SEO, what we would typically do is have multiple pages that cover these topics in depth detail, and we'd make sure that all those pages are very much interlinked with one another. That's been the key strategy. Internal linking has been the key strategy when it comes to giving Google that information and proving to Google that you are a robust care home, essentially. So you have all this information easily navigatable on the website. Whereas with AI mode, what it's looking for is making sure that your target page covers all of those angles in one place itself. Even if you do have that information scattered across your website, which you should do, you still need to have your target page having that content. So again, instead of having only the activities on one page, costs on another, your page should include a summary of the activities, the costs. It should include all the features within it, and it should link out to specific pages where needed as well. Your content needs to have very, very clear headers that are closely aligned with those subqueries. It needs to have bullet point lists, concise paragraphs. It needs to have technical SEO elements, so local business, service, and FAQ schema. That definitely is something that is still recommended, despite it being a traditional SEO practice. It still has its merit, massively so in AI search as well. And obviously, we'll talk about that as well in the next tip. So the key really is making it as effortless for Google as possible to extract every relevant fact as easily as possible to a point where it doesn't need to second guess. It knows that you are the best based on what you're saying. And that's what the aim should be for every page that we have on the website. We need to demonstrate that we are the best. So that's the key sort of shift, I suppose, in terms of how Google works compared to how it used to.
And Shay, you mentioned very briefly FAQ schema. So let's go into that because that's tip number two for how to prepare for Google's AI mode that we like to pitch, which is making sure you optimize your website with schema markup. And so, Shay, what's the download on that? What is it, and how can businesses apply it?
Yeah, so the schema markup is essentially a bit of code. It's placed on pages and it's invisible to users, but it provides a lot of information to Google and LLMs. So this bit of code essentially helps turn the content on your page into something that's more easily digestible by crawlers, and it helps feed their knowledge base off your page, your website, your business. So there's multiple different types of schema, and they all serve very different purposes. So to take that example that you've got on the top right there, Brandon, recipe schema is something that's one of the main types of schema for a certain type of website. It will help you appear within the recipe section on Google, and it has details such as how long it takes to complete the recipe, what ingredients are included, and the user reviews that have been left on your website. To get featured in there, you do need recipe schema. Without that code, you won't be within that feature on Google. Another pertinent example, which is quite different to that, is something called person schema. So if you're a private healthcare provider, you might have consultants or surgeons working in your business that Google already has some knowledge of. They could have that knowledge based on things like medical journals they've published or industry references or conferences that they've participated in that Google's already aware of. They may have a ton of authority in Google's eyes as a credible surgeon or consultant. By adding person schema to their staff profile on your website, you can leverage their credibility by making it clear to Google that the individual is part of your business and is the same person who published a specific medical journal that it already knows about, or that a person has a very specific credential or qualification. You may state all that information within your content, and you most likely already do that, but person schema helps establish that link. It solidifies your relationship to that person by giving Google the knowledge essentially on a plate. So Google and AI answers in general need to be able to understand your business, your services, but they also need a reason to trust you and recommend you over competitors. So schema is one way where you can do both those things. And in this example here, you can leverage someone who Google already considers to be authoritative to some degree and make sure that Google knows that there is a link between that person and your business.
Yeah, I always wondered how Google knows and these search engines know like the specific and the most correct information to show in some of these search results. And so to your point, building your website, make sure the content is on your website is, half the job. And the other half are some other technical things that can be done that just further makes sure that Google can understand and translate the information that's on your website to the users that are on search. I know this particular aspect of SEO and this hack is a really technical one. It can go really deep, really quickly. But for our audience here, when you receive the slides, again, here is a blog that you'll be able to connect to learn a little bit more about schema. And then also, we did a few webinars around this topic a few months ago that you can dive deeper into if you'd like. And that's one where we talked about advanced SEO strategies that you can implement for your business. And then also to go and complement the fan out method and just making sure that you have topical content answering the most appropriate questions on your website. We have another webinar you can watch. It's about 45 minutes. It talks about 4 ways to create content that actually converts leads to. So if that's the part of your strategy that you want to enhance, these are some resources that you'll be able to have to dive deeper into it. So Shay, let's continue on with tip number 3. And tip number 3, in terms of how businesses can prepare for Google's AI mode, is to encourage customers to engage on your own business's Google business profile and other profiles. Tell us a little bit more about this strategy and why it's helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, our initial data really in AI mode and AI overviews has shown that Google references Google Business Profile reviews quite a lot within its recommendations. And having a 4.8 rating versus your competitor having a 4.9 rating can be make or break in terms of whether it's recommending your competitor or recommending yourself as the number one answer. So from our perspective, Google Business Profile Optimization has always been a thing. It's been a part of SEO and always will be a part of SEO. But with AI mode, we do think that there is more importance now on reviews, and that is an element which a lot of SEO agencies can't help with in the sense of we can't generate those reviews for you as a business owner. there is some responsibility for business owners and marketing departments to get those reviews for their business, and there is onus on that being a much more of a greater ranking factor in the future for AI mode. So for us, we recommend encouraging customers to leave reviews on their profiles. So what you can do is navigate directly to your business profile. You can click on reviews and you can click on another link that comes up, which is get more reviews. That will help you find the direct link, as you can see in that screenshot there, which you can share with your customers. You can include this within automated emails to your customers once you've completed a job or you've completed that journey with them. You should make this an ingrained part of your business process from our perspective, because it's helping you build that brand on Google. What we also recommend is you should respond to all reviews, and that's both positive and negative. What we've seen again is people who don't, or businesses that don't answer reviews, tend to sort of lag behind when it comes to visibility, because what Google's looking for is businesses that are engaged, that are conversing with their customers, and aren't necessarily playing favorites to some degree, so ignoring the negative reviews but only responding to the positives. What's more important to not just Google but your users as well is to show them that you are engaging with the negatives and you're not hiding behind sort of the bad reviews to some degree. So what we do recommend is all business owners encourage more reviews from your customers and make sure you can see that you're an active and engaged business. On the same sort of note, what we recommend as well is industry-specific review websites. So things like carehome.co.uk if you're a care home, or even Trustpilot or Which recommended traders. We recommend building a profile on there that is also robust. So Google does reference those within its answers as well. And what you can see on that bottom screenshot there is that for this company in particular, they have referenced the Which directory and the reviews on there, in addition to the Google reviews as well. So we do recommend sort of making sure that you are really putting time in on improving your profiles of all these directory websites, all the websites in which your users can leave a review for you. But in terms of what an SEO agency can do for you, what we can make sure is that your business description covers the key points that Google is looking for when it is coming up with its recommendations. So that's part of the query fan out technique, making sure that your descriptions include all of those potential fan outs. We also would make sure that your information is up to date and correct. So the address, telephone number, making sure your website is actually linked up correctly as well to the right pages. And that's particularly important if you have multiple locations. We need to make sure that each location, each Google Business Profile listing is linked to the correct page in the website, which also has the correct schema type. So there's a number of things that we can do on our end. You can also make sure that your profiles have the correct services. They have the correct products listed within there, and your primary business category and the additional categories that you have within your profile are correct, are best optimized, and are always kept up to date in terms of what Google's looking for. So those are the things that what we can do on our end, but there is a responsibility on business owners to also invest in this space themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. And these are like good actual live screenshots too, as to like how it shows up in Google AI chat, or even ChatGPT in some instance, because sometimes you don't realize how all these different aspects of digital marketing, whether it's your website, your Google business profile, how they all work together. And AI is finding all of this information and giving it to these prospective customers. We've got quite a few questions in the chat, like how do customers leave reviews on this if they don't have a Gmail address? Suggestions for businesses that don't tend to get reviews, like schools, and whether a business should prioritize like Trustpilot and Google reviews. So Shay, I'll make sure we try to acknowledge some of these in our Q&A segment that's going to come up at the end, or in our post-webinar blog as well. But I just want to thank everyone who submitted those questions. And speaking about these different directories like Google Business Profile and Trustpilot, that takes us to our last point and tip number four, which is use digital PR to increase brand mentions and backlinks to your website. That could be a good way, or a good thing that a business could do to prepare for Google AI mode. But Shay, what is digital PR, and can you talk to us about that, and what backlinks and mentions and how that is important for business in this era of AI search?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is probably the biggest thing that we're seeing at the moment in terms of what can really make a difference in AI mode versus traditional SEO. So traditional SEO in the past has mainly relied, or Google's mainly relied on what you say about yourself, and it sort of takes your word at face value. With AI mode, it's also pulling from external sources like we talked about. So we talked about Google Business Profile, we talked about Trustpilot, etc. But what it also does is making sure that it's looking at things like news publications. It's looking at high authority websites that it already trusts to validate whether your business and what it's saying about yourself is actually accurate and whether it feels confident to recommend your business over other people. So that's been one of the biggest changes, of course, and digital PR in particular can really help, really help promote yourself to an extent which I don't think would have always been possible in traditional SEO necessarily. So if we're looking at the key factors for brand appearance in AI overviews and AI mode by extension, because they follow the same principles that underpin each other. So what we can see is the key factors really are things that we wouldn't necessarily correlate as being traditional SEO metrics as such. So if we're looking at those top two factors there, so branded web mentions and branded anchors, that essentially is people across the internet naming your business or naming your brand. So branded web mentions is when you're just mentioned essentially. So it could be a case that you're featured within a newspaper, an online newspaper. Um, Branded anchors is when you're featured within there, but you've also got a link to your website. So those two things are at the moment the biggest sort of indicators for appearing within AI overviews alongside traditional SEO factors as well. So digital PR can help with that because ultimately the practice of digital PR is making sure we create editorial based content that features your business, your brand, and yourself in a way in which comes across quite organic because the content is editorial. So digital PR can essentially create a very newsworthy um, sort of a news topic conversation to some degree. And it could be things like data campaigns. So we could do a bit of research on your behalf and find some information that says this location ranks number one in the UK for wherever it may be. What we will do is we can generate comments on your behalf and ensure that you're published within those articles by outreaching to journalists across the UK. So what that does really for yourself is the publications that pick that up have authority. Google trusts them, whether that's on a local basis, a regional or national basis. Google trusts those websites. And what you are essentially doing by being featured within there is you're being vouched for. Essentially, it's a vote of confidence that Google sees. And what we've seen across all our clients really is that websites and businesses that are mentioned the most within those high authority publications, they're the ones that are enjoying the most success at the moment in terms of AI overviews and AI mode. And we've got some statistics as well to kind of go through this in the sense of there's been a lot of data work that's been carried out across the industry. And I think Ahrefs is hopefully a well-known platform for a few people on this call. And their data shows that brands that are in the top 25% for web mentions, they average, I believe, about 170 AI overview mentions and citations. That's over 10 times more than those that are in the quartile below that. And the brands that are in the lowest 50% of web mentions average just between 0 to 3 AI citations. So essentially, they are almost invisible to people. And there's a bit of a reinforcing cycle here where having visibility on news publications on high authority websites breeds visibility for your website for the search terms that you want. So without any websites talking about you, it's unlikely that a brand or your brand will appear in AI summaries. because that's essentially Google's way of validating whether or not you are something or you are a business that we should recommend. So it's really important that, yes, user reviews are being accumulated over time. People are vouching for you that have dealt with you. But what Google also needs to see is actually, I trust all these websites over here, but none of them are talking about this business. They're talking about your competitor instead or someone else. Therefore, I should probably, on balance, go with those competitors instead of you because I do trust them. I have a higher or greater level of confidence in them than I have in you.
Yeah, Shay, that's one of those other fundamental like mind shifts that we've got to make in this whole shift. And that is also just understanding the importance of and the evolution of like backlinks and brand mentions and how that typically contributes to traditional SEO and how it's shifting to SEO in this AI mode type era. Just briefly, I know you have a few points here to make just to talk about for those of us who are still trying to make that connection between the old way and the new way and backlinks. I think you've got a good illustration here. If you can take us through quickly through this bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, backlinks have always been an important part of SEO. Brand mentions, on the other hand, have been fairly meaningless in the grand scheme of things. So it's always been having backlinks, but not just having any type of backlink, having a specific type of backlink, which is called follow backlinks. So that essentially is backlinks that the website that has given you that link is essentially telling Google, consider this link to be me vouching for this website. So crawl the website that I am linking to and index it if you think it is relevant to users for certain search terms. So that used to be the biggest ranking factor to some degree was number of people ranking or linking rather to your website. What Google did was it introduced the no follow rule, which essentially said, I'm giving control to websites to sort of say, I might link to 20 different other websites, but only consider the ones that I include a follow link for as me vouching for them. So it created that distinction, and Google really follows the no follow rule quite closely. And so it was a strict rule. It would essentially pass no ranking factors or signals to your website. Following on from that, however, in 2019, what Google did was it essentially treated no follow rules as a hint rather than a directive. So essentially said, even if you are saying no follow, if I think as the algorithm that this is a useful link, a relevant link, I will actually crawl that website and consider that to be you vouching for them. So there was a bit of a shift in that regard. And so when it came to the value of backlinks, both follow and do follow, so follow and don't follow links were essentially regarded as being almost equal to some degree. But we're at that point now where you actually don't even need a link. And that's been the biggest change with AI overviews and AI mode. So historically, it mattered what type of backlinks you had. If you had a certain type of ratio, so you can see it at the very bottom over there, where if you previously had 100 follow backlinks or 0 no follow backlinks and 0 brand mentions, that would have given you success. That is what would have worked. Whereas today, that won't work. That won't be the best profile you can have. What you need actually is, let's say, 50 follow backlinks, 25 no follow backlinks, or 25 brand mentions, or equally 0 backlinks and 1,000 brand mentions. It doesn't really matter because what Google's looking for now is, can I feasibly recommend this business and vouch for them? And what trust signals do I have? And it doesn't rely on the backlinks itself.
Yeah, Shay, I think anyone who's in marketing on the call has, I think everyone has probably received an email from some spam account saying we can get you 1,000 backlinks to your website for, X amount of pounds. And so it's interesting to know like where things are going. The amount of backlinks sometimes is not what matters. It's the quality of those backlinks. And, some of those backlinks can be toxic. And that there's a science to having a nice mix between backlinks, brand mentions, finding which websites have that authority. As someone has a question about, is like, how do you find those websites that have the authority? And I can get and see how it can be helpful to work with, professionals who are in that space, like yourself. This is also one of those topics, digital PR, that we can spend a lot of time on. But if you want to take a deeper dive on this particular topic, we're on it. We've got a webinar for you that we've already done. We've talked about it. It's a 45-minute webinar. Just go and watch it. It'll answer like all your questions about digital PR and go deeper than what Shai was just able to do. So, Shai, I think we've got just a few minutes left. We may go over like 5 minutes or so just to make sure we get one or two questions in. But this next component of the webinar really is just about you sharing with us just some of the insider secrets, some of the things that you're seeing that has worked with some of the clients that we've got across different industries, and you showing us like how they've come up in AI chat or AI mode so far. So what are you seeing in this space?
Yeah, I think the perfect example really to begin with would be a school that we work with, and we work with them for digital PR at the moment, and I think they've been with us for about 9 months now. If we're looking at their presence on AI overviews, to begin with, there wasn't a great deal of presence, as you can see on the left hand side there. So um, at the very bottom is their name, so Burgess Hill Girls, and you can see that essentially towards the bottom of the recommendations, the number one sort of answer or recommendation that Google's giving is Rodine School. That's the number one recommendation, and there is a slight mention again for Burgess Hill and the other schools as well. Fast forward a month later, and some of those brand mentions and backlinks that we've attained for them during the digital PR campaign, they're starting to pay off. And what we can see is that, again, just a month later, nothing's changed in terms of the school's rankings, Ofsted ratings, or whatever it may be. The only thing that's changed is those backlinks and brand mentions have been recognized a bit more. And what we can see in a month's time, they have now become the top recommendation. So they are leading the way when it comes to the amount of features they have within AI overviews. So rather than just one ancillary sort of brand mention, they have essentially got four, including links going to their website as well. So this is a pretty quick turnaround. It doesn't usually happen this quickly, of course, but it's something that we can control. And there are elements that we can control using some of the strategies we've talked about, but also the backlinks and brand mentions, which is clearly having a big effect. So that's until then, and that's AI overviews. But we've also got ChatGPT that has had a very similar effect in that same time frame. So nothing's changed in that time again. So again, like I said, Ofsted ratings, performance equally the same. For the keyword best private girls school in Sussex, they've again overtaken their direct competitor. So that's obviously a great win, and that's on AI overviews and ChatGPT. But to take that a step further, we've also seen that now extend out into AI mode. And what you can see here is again, same search term, so best private girls school Sussex. If you look for their competitor, you actually won't find them anymore. And they're leading the way when it comes to the recommendation. So Google's essentially going all in on this by recommending them 3 times in the links on the right hand side, but also giving them a huge feature here as well. It's worth mentioning though that this is subject to change quite quickly, so it's quite volatile, and making sure you are quite consistent with the backlink building over time is important. And it's also worthwhile remembering that there are A/B tests that take place. So Google will show this answer to one person, but show another answer to someone else. But the fact is that we are providing that level of confidence to Google that it can actually recommend a business all in is a very good sign that they have a high level of confidence that this business should be recommended in the future, at least in some shape or form. And again, that's just through a digital PR campaign with no SEO running as it stands. So that's again, I think it demonstrates the power of digital PR link building that we can sort of provide to businesses.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And Shai, I mean, I know this is education, but are you seeing this across other spaces, other industries too, um, with the clients? And are you having to do different strategies for different industries?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, I think the answer to that is our techniques and our strategies have always been quite forward thinking in terms of the direction Google's going in. So we've been able to deliver great results for clients in multiple industries and verticals. So, things like restaurants, home improvement, education, like I mentioned, health. There's a number of industries and verticals that we've been able to demonstrate good results with, and a number of these have both SEO and digital PR. Some only have SEO, some only have digital PR, but the ones that have both are seeing the greatest level of visibility as it stands. So Absolutely. That is something that we've had to tailor some elements of our strategies, but ultimately we're well placed in this because our strategies have always been modern and have always taken into account where Google's heading, essentially.
No, good deal. Thank you, Shay. And as we head towards a close for our webinar today, we still have some questions that we're going to answer live and a couple of things in terms of some next steps. I'm going to launch a poll in the chat area. And so if everyone can give us their feedback so far on the pace of the webinar, we appreciate that. I'll just keep that live. But just a few quick takeaways from today. I know we've covered a lot, but the webinar is being recorded and you'll receive it within 24 hours so that way you can go back through it in your leisure. But I think these are the key takeaways from today's webinar, how your business can prepare for Google's AI mode. From Shay, we learned, I think that you should just kind of focus on visibility, making sure that your business is going to come up in those responses in AI mode, in AI overviews. And the best way you can do that is to make sure that your content has those signals that the search engines are going to pick up on so that they know that you're a credible source and that the information that you have on your website is the exact information that people are needing when they're searching. We spent a little bit of time talking about digital PR. I think that's a nice new spin and add on to your traditional SEO type services that you may have in your marketing mix. And Shay talked about the importance that, or the important role that digital PR plays in contributing to the brand mentions and the backlinks, of which we saw the screenshots as to like how those are starting to show up in the AI search results and responses. And then, it's not all about what you can do internally, but sometimes it's about what your customers can do for you as well. And so we have to make the ask once we've done a great job with them, even in those industries that we may think that we don't typically get reviews on. Someone put in a chat like education. Nope, it's still important. Get students, get parents to go to the Google business profile for your particular business and ask them to leave a review. Hopefully it's positive, but even as Shay said, positive or negative reviews all still should receive a response of some sort from your business because customers are looking at how you respond even to those negative responses. So those are key takeaways. And then when you think about next steps, how do you take all this information that we've covered today and what's the next best thing that you and your business should do? I think it boils down to three core things. Find an SEO strategy that we talked about and try to begin implementing that for your business. We covered quite a few things. So, if you could just find one to focus in on, do that. Taking some action is better than doing nothing. Two, explore the deeper dives that we shared at the different increments of the webinar. I offered a lot of other additional webinars that you can go to and watch if you want to learn a little bit more about certain topics. And then the final thing that I think is really good for everyone to do, it only takes like 3 to 5 minutes. I put the link in the chat, and that is if you go to our website, you can get a free SEO audit of your website. It'll give you a score and a grade across a few different uh, domains and aspects of SEO. And that's a good report for yourself. It's a good report to share with your upline, and it can be a good starting point to help you understand where your business may need to make some improvements as it relates to your SEO strategies. So those are all the takeaways and next steps that I would suggest and recommend. Shay, can you stick around for like 5 minutes just to answer maybe 2 or 3 questions that we've got from the people who've been on our chat on the webinar today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, good deal. And if we aren't able to get to, I'm sure we won't be able to get to all of the questions. Again, just know that we will put out a blog post this webinar answering all the questions that have come through. So appreciate all the engagement and the questions. Shay, one of the first questions that came through here is, pretty much are traditional SEO practices just now outdated given the launch of AI mode and AI overviews?
A good question. We get that a lot. And yeah, the answer is definitely not. So a lot of the factors we talked about today are things that modern SEO agencies have already been incorporating in their strategies. So there are things that do need to be tweaked in terms of the tactics, but the core principles of good SEO still do apply. Websites still need to be easily crawlable and need to be able to be indexed. They need to have original and clear content that is structured well. Metadata like titles and descriptions need to be optimized. Pages need to be fast. They need to be mobile friendly. The right schema types need to be implemented, and the user experience still needs to be top notch. So those are all traditional SEO factors and tactics, and they haven't changed. They won't likely will never change. But there are obviously tweaks to those things that we must do now. And I think the biggest takeaway for us is there's additions to traditional SEO strategies that we need to incorporate a little bit more and a bit more aggressively rather. And that's things like digital PR and maybe a bit more Google business profile optimization than what was historically done from an on-page perspective.
Thanks for that, Shay. Here's a question from one attendee. They're asking, what's the best way for blogs to be included in AI overviews in Google? And are they less or more important now than they were before blogs?
Yeah, so the best way to be included really in there is prioritize helpful content. So clear answers to common questions that your customers might have or your potential customers may have. You should use things like structured data, strong headings, clear sort of bullet points, demonstrate your experience in a very clear and concise way, but also make sure that you are answering that user intent as clearly as possible. So make sure that that content is as direct as possible, showcases your credibility, and that's the sort of content that has the best chance of surfacing. In terms of whether it's less or more important, we're probably about the same to some degree. So blogs are useful to demonstrate topical authority to Google and of course to your users as well to prove that you have expertise in your field. But if you do view it through the lens of generating traffic and getting direct conversions through blog posts, that is probably in balance less important now. So Google is providing that blog style content within its answers. So the focus for business owners should likely be on driving relevant converting traffic as opposed to anything else. So that means your transactional pages, like the homepage, service pages, location pages, those are the ones which are more important now because getting clicks to those will lead to those results that you need, which is leads and inquiries, not those blog posts.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and just things on your website, one question here, the person says they've heard things like LLMs text files, like adding certain text files on your website, on make sure that you have it on your server, are important to show up in AI mode. What's your view about that, having those type of text files on your website?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, for those that don't know really the technical side of it that much necessarily, so websites typically have a robots.txt file, and that stipulates the crawlers whether they're allowed to crawl the website, and if so, what pages and how they should crawl it. So LLMs.txt files are slightly different to that, but essentially are an iteration on that model. So they specify to LLMs in particular which pages should be considered to be indexed, and they give the content to them in a very structured way, which is a little bit different to the usual pages that you see as a user. So this isn't something that's important as it currently stands, and it's sort of been debunked a little bit in terms of implementing it today because it's currently a proposed framework. It's not something that LLMs actively use, and Google in particular will probably never use it, whereas ChatGPT may in the future if they adopt it. So at the moment, not important, and it also is unlikely to be important in the short to medium term, but you never know where we're going to go with this, of course, as well. So yeah, we don't implement it at the moment for our clients because we think there's better stuff, more impactful things that we could be doing. But that's not to say that we won't keep an eye on those things in the future as well.
Cool. Last question, Shay. I think this is a really good one too. Does Google's AI search devalue clicks?
No, the opposite, in fact. So clicks are actually more valuable now in the environment that we're in. So it's more difficult to get clicks. So the clicks that you do get are more valuable. I think previously businesses could get easy clicks on the whole by having informative content on their website that ranks well and gets traffic. but it's now harder to get those sort of clicks because Google is providing that informative content within the search results page itself. So the value of those clicks that you do get, which I think in my mind are better clicks in reality, it's more difficult to get those clicks. So I do think that the value has increased over that time. The clicks that you do get, I think, would largely be further down the funnel. So the research work is already done offsite, and the traffic you do get will likely convert better. So the value of getting those converting relevant traffic clicks to your website have increased in value, in my perspective.
All right. Well, hey, that's a very valuable perspective. Shay, we really appreciate you taking the time to share so much information about us, about just everything that Google is doing to respond to AI in search and how they're making our lives even more complicated. But your advice and the tips today uh, do give us a little bit more confidence and clarity as to like how we should move forward through with this. And so thank you for your time, and thank you to everybody that's joined us on the webinar today. Remember, as you exit, to complete that survey, that poll that's in the chat, so we can know how you feel about today's webinar. And if you have questions and you want a one-on-one to connect with one of our experts to talk about your specific business and its needs more personalized than we were able to do today, feel free to also just let us know in that survey, and we'll make sure we get in touch. And then the webinar's recording will be emailed to you within 24 hours. So be sure to take a look at that, as well as other helpful resources that we have that'll help you on this topic and help you navigate it in general for your business. So again, thanks, Shay. Thank you to everybody. We had a really great turnout today, and looking forward to talking about whatever Google puts out to us next in our next webinar in the coming weeks. So talk to you soon. Thank you.